Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is September 26th. This is part two, the second edition today, and we got some strong thunderstorms here across the Puget Sound, and we've got a developing storm system off the coastline, so we're going to take a detailed look at those coming up here. And you can see I was taking pictures of the drone on the south side. It looked like it had funnel cloud activity, had a nice shelf cloud on it as well, and had lightning strikes associated with this as some strong thunderstorm activity moved across the Seattle area this afternoon, and you can continue to see this line of storms move across the region, just absolutely pouring at my house. I heard some thunder out there, some embedded lightning strikes associated with that as well. And we could even have some additional showers behind that. And then we have the developing storm out over the Pacific Ocean. But let's just go ahead and jump into things here. This is what I photographed from that south side. You can see it on my Twitter feed if you want. This would be where that funnel cloud activity was, kind of this rotating wall cloud. And you can kind of see the shelf cloud that was out in front of it. Looks like this belongs more in a place like Kansas versus Puget Sound. And this is a little bit wider view. I think you can see how this was changing shapes. Look to be a couple funnels there funneling down in this thunderstorm activities that move towards the Seattle metropolitan area here. And this line, is now moving across the Puget Sound as we speak. And you're probably hearing thunder out there if you're anywhere in the Puget Sound today. And this is this developing system. Bear Clinic leaf stage right now. The cloud tops are getting high. It is a deepening low pressure center, but some of the models are showing this kind of filling a little bit here off the coastline before it launches into the coast. So it may spare the worst effects just out over the water, but still should bring some pretty breezy conditions, probably some gusts up to 60 miles per hour just to the south side of the slough where it makes landfall. And the models have kind of been all over the place. The European has been showing the Northwest Washington coast, and it switched a little bit further south, and the NAM was further south into Northwest Oregon. Now it's back on the Washington coast. And if this thing comes in, the deeper it comes in, the further north it will tend to track. So I think this is going to come in here to the Southwest Washington coast. There's probably going to be an area of, like I said, some pretty strong winds here as it comes in. More on that here in a moment. And if you look here, you can see Washington, Oregon. You can see the developing storm and all these flashes here with the associated lightning strikes as we've been going through the day today. The deep low pressure center here is now moving up towards southeast Alaska. What a trough. What a storm. Quite the run here over the last few days. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station to record all this weather, click on that link down below to save 10%. Check it out. Very heavy rain occurring at my house right now. And it's... right now it says 1/3 of an inch, and it just started, so that fell pretty quickly here, and you can kind of see the wind gusting. You can see the last lightning strike detected 32 minutes ago. So really fun to watch the weather on these weather stations. And this is looking at the day one convective outlook. No surprise to anybody here across Pacific Northwest. And now here we go. This is the European. This is the hot off the press of the 12Z run. You can see it is now kind of bringing the worst of it right into some of the Willapa Bay area there, maybe ocean shores, as this tracks in towards western Washington. And this is a pretty good gradient here. You can see a 15 millibar gradient, some of the way near the central Oregon coast up towards Willapa Bay there. So, pretty potent gradient there, and brings some gusts maybe up to 60 miles per hour associated with it. But again, the worst of it probably just staying right off source. Some gusts probably 70 plus miles per hour right there. This is looking at the NAM 3 cam. This is also hot off the presses here, the 18Z run. Look at that low pressure center. Now it has it going into kind of the central Washington coastline here. And again, a pretty good gradient, 16 millibars here from about Astoria, just north of Ocean Shores there. So yeah, a little potent little windstorm rolling in here. And this could bring some gusty winds to places like Portland, Seattle, some of the I-5 corridor, some of the higher terrain in Southwest Washington. And of course, as you go down the Oregon coast, you're going to get a frontal system with this storm as well. It's going to cause, so the confidence is pretty high. You're going to get 40 mile per hour gusts up and down the Oregon coast as of right now. We'll take a look at that in a little more detail in a moment. Here's the HER 3 cam. Put that into motion. And you can see the storm develop as it moves right into basically Cape Disappointment there. And again, a pretty good pressure gradient there on the south side of the storm as it moves in. Now looking at Seattle-Tacoma, you can see the European. Some of these ensemble runs have very little wind, and that's going to depend on the track of the low. If we're on the south side and this thing comes in a little bit quicker, you could get a 50 mile per hour gust. Would not be out of the question here with a storm like this. You can see the latest control run there, 42 miles per hour for SeaTac. Could be problematic early in the season. Lots of leaves on the trees, possibly weakened from some of the drought, maybe some insects. Who knows what is affecting the trees in and around your local area. This is Hoquiam on the coastline there as well. You can can see some of these have 50 plus, some of them have much less. And that's because if the low pressure center tracks south of Olympia, you're not going to get that windy. The control run latest 42 miles per hour. Quileute, too far north, it looks like. And if the storm tracks enough to the north, you can see some of these 40 mile per hour gusts in there, but very far and few between. And generally just kind of blustery winds, maybe into the 20, 25 mile per hour range here because you're north of the low pressure center driving into the southwest Washington coast. Astoria, probably a good bet for some 40 mile per hour gusts showing up here. And again, you can kind of see some of them up towards 50 miles per hour. And if the NAM or the HUR is right, and this goes a little bit further south, then you're going to get a higher gust, you're going to get better gusts. But as you saw, that last 18Z NAM kind of trended north, the last one. Tillamook, you can see down the Oregon coastline here, you're probably going to get some winds, 40, 45 miles per hour, and the chance for some higher gusts associated with that frontal system rolling through all the way down for Newport, down the Oregon coast. Look at this, virtually all the ensembles say 40 plus and up towards 50 miles per hour, not out of the question. Now here's looking at the NAM 3K, hot off the presses. You'll see the development of this system. You can kind of see what we call the bent back occlusion right there. Strongest winds there, but it kind of takes a little bit of time here at the last minute and weakens itself a bit. So we would be spared the worst blow from this if that were to be the case. If this launched in there, then you'd get a pretty isolated, localized spot of some very strong winds, potentially 70 plus. But as it looks now, you're probably looking at the peak gust up towards 60 miles per hour, right in the perfect vicinity of that bent back occlusion here, just to the south of the low. And you can see the latest NAM here throwing it just north of Ocean Shores here. Across Highway 109 right on the coast there. And then you can see it bringing the gusty winds into the Puget Sound as we go into tomorrow morning. It's a pretty good southerly flow there at the surface, or 80 meters here shown on the NAM. This is the European peak wind gust. If we go through through tomorrow morning, again, the worst of it probably just right offshore here, but you can't rule out 50 plus mile per hour gusts all the way down the Oregon coast. And then you can see that wind extend inland towards Seattle, maybe a gust up towards 40, but you can see a Olympia, Tacoma in the low 40s here as well, and some higher terrain across some of southwest Washington could get gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour there as well. And across some of the Cascades, don't sleep on that as this continues to push off into the inner areas here. You can see the Cascades, some of the higher peaks, they're just kind of more susceptible to some of these stronger winds. This is looking at the UW model. This is the 12 km version here, but you can see that deep low up to the northwest portion, the upper portion there. Low pressure center rolls into the coastline. You can see that powerful gradient right off of Cape Disappointment, mouth of the Columbia River there. Strong pressure gradient to the south of that, and that's where the strongest winds would be. In this kind of scenario, Seattle would get very little wind from that system, but Portland would get quite a blow. You could get gusts 45 miles per hour, some of the Willamette Valley here as well, and some of the northwest Oregon coast would be getting pretty savage gusts in that scenario there. Now, why did we get all those thunderstorms today? Well, if you remember what I said this morning, we're going to destabilize pretty well, and we have been across the region. And then we start to relax here. Of course, we'll be going to the overnight hours, and you can see the system, and you can't rule out a thunderstorm maybe through tomorrow morning here across some of southwest Washington and Oregon. But we don't destabilize quite as much tomorrow, even though there will still be some cold air aloft around. Looking at the composite reflectivity, this is as we go on in through the day today. And you can kind of see the NAM showing another interesting storm coming up here across Tacoma, maybe up towards Seattle as we go through this evening. Continued showers off and on. Then you can see that strong frontal system all the way from central Washington coastline down the Oregon coast. You can clearly see this low pressure center bent back occlusion here, spreading rainfall back up over the region. Again, another shot of rain for a lot of the areas we go on into tomorrow. And the low pressure center, according to the NAM, kind of moving right across the Olympics and in through the central Puget Sound, somewhat of a convergence zone signal there as we go on in through tomorrow afternoon. That system pushes off to the east. This is the HUR 3KM hot off the presses also. You can see the lightning flash density potential as you go through the day today. And, you've probably been hearing thunder out there unless you are, inside or you got earplugs on or something, because it's been pretty loud at times across the area. Now, looking out in the extent a little bit here, we'll look at the 12Z European. There goes our secondary system here. Trough kind of hanging out here as we go through the later portion of the week. But then we could bounce back with a couple nice days. You can kind of see the ridging nosing into the area. But then the European wants to bring another trough here. And as we go on into the 10-day period or so, you can see continued troughing here across some of the Pacific Northwest. So we have plenty of time to watch it at this point. And I'll show you what the GFS shows starting now. This is what's currently going on in the GFS. There goes the secondary system here. swinging through the area. Trough hangs out here as we go towards the end of the week. Then we start to build that ridge in here. Maybe get a couple nice days out of this after all as we go through the early portion of next week. And then the GFS also shows some of this interesting troughing here as we go through the 8, 9, 10 day time frame. And if you go off into fantasy land far enough, the GFS will always give you something crazy as it shows another very deep low pressure trough here off the coastline. This doesn't look quite unlike what we are just dealing with now here across the area, but purely fantasy at this point, of course. And we talked about the Pacific North American Oscillation. You can see the video this morning if you want to see it explained a little bit better. You can kind of see us in negative territory here as we deal with this troughing through the end of the month here, bounce back, and then that troughing is pretty close to the Pacific Northwest, and that's why the Pacific North American Oscillation is showing up as negative. European, pretty good agreement with the GFS here. And you can kind of see what that means. This would be at 500 millibars here. The troughing is closer to the inland areas of the Pacific Northwest with ridging out over the Pacific Ocean, including the Aleutian Islands. And positive is reverse of that. But yeah, interesting stuff out there today. I'm glad I was able to capture some of this stuff. Always fun to watch thunderstorms roll through here. If you've been paying attention to weather Twitter here across Pacific Northwest today, you're seeing a lot of these cloud formations rolling in and the heavy rain, lots of lightning and thunder as well. So that may continue on in through this evening. And then we'll be watching that storm system. As I do my briefing tomorrow, though, it'll probably be either breezy here at my house and there'll be gusty winds, or that low will be just missing to the south of me here. So anyway, yeah, so keep your if you're really going to be outside or whatnot late tonight into early tomorrow morning, listen to your local alerts. National Weather Service, watch for those wind advisories or maybe even high wind warnings across some of the immediate coastline there could be issued as that low pressure center rolls in here. And if something crazy changes, maybe I'll do another video tonight, who knows, or I'll try to get my video out early tomorrow morning, but that may be too late for some of this wind impacts across a lot of the coastal areas or inland. But anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. You guys make this channel possible. It's been awesome. It's almost up towards 50,000 subscribers now. And, a lot of the members that support this page make this all possible. It makes it worth my while to do this. I enjoy doing it. And hopefully this will be, something we can continue on in through the next several years or so. And anyway, yeah, so I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning at the latest, and I'll see you then.